If you're not getting full vacuum and notice the red indicator button on your vacuum power unit no longer sits flush during use, it's either a small clog in the VPU or an air leak on the chuck side of the system. But don't worry, both are easily fixed. To diagnose the problem, unplug the air hose from the chuck and cover the end of the tube with your finger, then turn on the VPU. If the indicator button sits flush, then we know the problem is on the chuck side, which is almost always a bad gasketing issue. Watch our top 10 vacuum work holding tips video to troubleshoot the gasketing. Links in the description. Now, if the indicator button doesn't sit flush, a simple cleaning of the VPU will take care of the issue. Before we get started, you'll need 4 tools: a 7/16 socket or crescent wrench, a 5/32 Allen wrench, a 3/32 Allen wrench, and a 60 thousandths diameter gauge pin. If you don't have this size of gauge pin, a number 53 drill will also work. Also, keep an air gun within reach. There are multiple versions of the vacuum power unit, but internally they're all pretty similar, so we'll start with the most commonly sold to date, which is the black SmartVac 2. Use a socket wrench to remove the brass muffler. Next, use the 5/32 Allen wrench to remove the 2 socket cap screws from the right side, which will allow you to separate the 2 halves. Set aside the right side of the VPU, as there are no user serviceable parts that need to be cleaned or adjusted. Insert your Allen wrench into the hole the muffler came out of and gently apply pressure to remove the components. There are 3 parts to remove. The first is a spacer, which is seated with the O-ring. Next is a brass tube, and the last is a brass cone. This tube is what we'll focus on first. With the gauge pin, push in through the narrow side to clear any particles or buildup. It's a good idea to blow compressed air through it or soak it in a mild degreaser if you notice any stubborn buildup like dried coolant. For the cone portion, check it by holding it up to a light source to see if it's clear. If there is a clog, blow it out and consider using an air filter before your VPU. Next, we'll check the indicator button assembly. Loosen the set screw on this face a few turns and pull up on the red indicator button. Earlier VPUs have 2 set screws on top to remove. The indicator assembly will come out, but leave it together. Just check for chips on the bottom side and you can blow them out. Now in the bore, you'll see a spring and an O-ring. If there's chips in the bore, go ahead and blow them out, but don't lose the O-ring. Now let's put everything back together, starting with the indicator assembly. Push it back in the bore and tighten the set screw until it stays flush, but don't kill it. Hand tight is plenty tight. Now let's insert the narrow end of the brass tube first. The orientation of the side hole in the tube doesn't matter, but ideally have the hole horizontal with the unit. Next, the brass cone nests into the brass tube with the cone pointing inward. And finally, the spacer is used to press the assembly down until it is flush with the case. Make sure to fit the O-ring to the spacer for a proper seal. Now align both halves of the VPU and tighten the 2 socket cap screws. Finally, put the muffler back in place and that's it. Your vacuum power unit is clean and ready to pull full vacuum again. For added security and peace of mind, check out our VacWatch vacuum monitor. It monitors vacuum level 1,000 times per second and will automatically stop the machine if the vacuum level falls below a user-defined threshold. Go to PearsonWorkholding.com for more information. Now, go innovate your production.